He showed very classic symptoms of autism. He had very stereotypical behaviors, like he'll keep lining up cars, he'll walk on his toes, he'll not give me eye contact, he will just keep running in circles, he will not respond.
Once you identify there is autism, then what should they do?
It's not a problem. It's a condition. That became my biggest motivation. I see a change. He's giving me eye contact. He's now looking at me.
When you gave up your life and this is all you were doing, what was your day like?
So one cannot assume that I know it all just because I know my child.
So don't look down, don't ignore.
Don't hide. I wear
Don't hide.
autism on my sleeve.
Are there any fears that you have today?
I'm not going to be around forever. What will happen?
Having a child is a big excitement in our life. But what happens when that child has a medical issue? And that too if the medical issue does not really have a cure. Autism is one of those problems that we face when we have a child who is born with autism. Today, I'm very fortunate that I've got somebody in the studio who has a child who was born with autism. Thank you so much, Anupama, for joining us. So I want to start with, so you have a son who's got autism. I want to start with understanding, when did you find out and how did you feel about it?
Okay. I'll start with telling you, you just said a problem. So it's not a problem. It's a condition.
Okay.
And when you have a condition, the ideas and what you can do with it are so many. So if I look at it as a problem, then I don't have many solutions. So first and foremost, I took it as a condition. So Pranav's diagnosis happened because he showed very classic symptoms of autism. I had read about autism. Back in the day, I was a voracious reader. Now I read what Pranav reads. And I had read about autism, but reading about it and having to look at it is something very different. He had regret speech and he used to walk on his toes and he had very obsessive traits. And when I got the diagnosis, strangely, obviously, there is a cycle. Even psychologists will tell you that you go through denial, then anger, why me? And then you go into that bargaining, let me do this, maybe God will help me, maybe this person will help me, that. And then finally acceptance. I don't know how it happened. I did not waste my time on all this. I had a diagnosis on hand. Finally, my doubts, my concerns were answered. Okay, this is autism. My child can live. My child has potential. My sleeves were rolled up that very day. It's just that I did not know what to do. So that took time. There also I was lucky. I was with my mom and she told me a couple of things, that this is how he communicates with me, because he was very fond of her. I said, okay, if this is how he communicates with her, let me take off from there. So that IEP, individualized education plan, that came into picture much later. That very first day I knew my task. Of course, I must have fumbled. Of course, I must have made some mistakes. Of course, I must have learned and relearned. Along the way, I decided to equip myself. Know as much as possible about autism, read as much as possible, do courses, study, balance it, and probably, this is how it worked in my scheme of things. I did not waste time. And
At what age did you find out or did you start suspecting?
he was 2 years and quarter.
And what made you
Okay.
think it might be some problem or some condition?
Like I said, he had very stereotypical behaviors, like he'll keep lining up cars and then he'll walk on his toes, he'll not give me eye contact. He will just keep running in circles, he will not respond. His speech showed a very classic regression. By 1.5 years, he was picking up words and speaking words. And by the time he reached 2, it had become a very stereotypical repetition. There was no further improvement there in terms of speech. The eye contact was diminishing. He was hyperactive, I can't tell you how. It was like a little tornado around the house. And I knew that I am trying my best. I already had a daughter. You know how to bring up your children. When I started to say, voice my concerns, many times you're told, no, boys speak late, or this happens, or that happens. But I wanted to know why this. I contemplated sending him to school. But then I also knew 2 years and a quarter is too early for a child to go to school. But I was doing that, and then I thought, let me find out. Let me go to a pediatric neurologist. And the pediatric neurologist told me he has PDD-NOS. Back in the day, they used to say that, pervasive developmental disorder, otherwise not specified, which in any case leads to autism. So, okay, what I knew of autism was that people live in their own world.
Okay.
So, at a literal level, I could connect. Oh, yes, Pranav kind of lives in his own world. I'm a hands on mom. I don't even literally blink. I just used to shadow him because he had a very traumatic birth history and I almost lost him. I was very insecure anyway. So, I used to literally follow him around. So, my brain had documented each phase of his life till he reached quarter to two. And then, from there I knew that things are changing. There's a very classic regression they talk of in autism. And I witnessed that. And I'm glad I got the diagnosis early. And then after that, what? So then that what is a vacuum? Because nobody hands you over a manual and says, do this. You have to figure out while you're learning, there are different therapies, different strategies, do this, do that. There are some distractions too, and I wanted to stay focused. I wanted to stay positive. I did not want any clutter there. And probably that early intervention did help because I wanted him to go to a mainstream school also. I got him admitted to a play school. The play school made accommodations. I tried to do some intervention. Now, I wasn't a trained special educator. I had the only insight I thought I had was I was into teaching, so probably that insight. And second thing, I had done linguistics as part of my MPhil. Now that linguistics gives you an idea on the semantics and the syntax and how language develops at a different level, not like a speech pathologist would know. But still, I decided that okay, I'm going to work on his language very scientifically. He
Right.
has a vocabulary to literally, an impressive one. I'm not taking any credit for that, but once you work in the right direction, I think stints, and he showed promise.
Right.
And he showed improvement. So that was my biggest reinforcement. It's not that it happened every day, every time. I reached situations where I didn't know what to do, but you reach, go back and follow another way. So that became my biggest motivation. I see a change. He's giving me eye contact. He's now looking at me. He's now settling down. He's not looking at me. He's less hyperactive. He's not hitting my daughter as much as he used to hit her.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. So, all those so-called challenging behaviors, but we separated Pranav from the challenging behaviors. Like I used to tell my daughter that this is because he has autism. Now, autism was not a dreaded word, it's a condition. This happens, and because he has autism, he is behaving like this. And I gave full credit to her. She also followed through. She also understood. She became my literally like, partner in crime, and we used to work on his different skills. And it was motivating for her because she was a very loving sibling, and it was motivating for me because, naturally,
Right.
I was a mom. I had to, best motivation there that I need to bring those changes, and those changes started coming too. So when they talk of early intervention, it's a very, very sound thing. It works.
So, for people who might be watching this and who might have a young child, 2 years, 3 years old, where they've recently identified or they're worried about if that child has autism, one is don't wait.
Absolutely.
Get the checkup done. Early intervention is important. So that's one message that you have. The second is once you identify there is autism, then what should they do? I mean, the one thing that I'm hearing from you is don't be hopeful, be positive. It's
Yeah.
not a problem, it's a
Yeah.
condition,
Absolutely.
right? Anything else?
So yeah, and my approach, like so and so suffers from autism. So it's like it's so negative. It weighs you down. If you speak to Pranav, that's what he wants to tell you. I don't suffer from autism. It's a condition. I'm like anybody else. So the parents need to start off with that positive note. I mean, I don't think I have reached that stage where I can actually advise other parents. I mean, I'm sure they also have fulfilling, mindful journeys which they lead on their own. But I can talk of what I did.
Of course, your journey.
Yeah. So once you've identified, then what next? I need to start working on the skills. I don't wait for that big moment that aaj se mujhe start karna hai. You know how it works. I need to start today. Okay, let me see which is the first behavior I need to target. In Pranav's case, it was his behavior. I wanted his eye contact. I wanted his aggressive behavior to settle. Now, right now I'm saying aggressive. I know it's a very politically incorrect work to do. He couldn't help being what he was. It's just that he was hyperactive, and so you target a behavior and you work on it. Now, behavior modification also comes with a lot of strategies. Now, again, one has to be consistent. One fine day give up. Oh no, I'm trying so hard. It is not working. It is not about me. All young parents need to know this. It's not about you. It's about the child. Somewhere you will have to take a back seat. I feel, for instance, I never had that me time. I never had that luxury of sitting and watching TV or following some fashion trends or knowing what's happening in the world. I don't care. It's all right. I've had such a fulfilling life, a beautiful life. I feel that. I'm so lucky.
So you didn't have time to do all these things because you were constantly with
Obviously.
him.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So that's there. So some situations will require your 100% focus, right? And if there is nobody, like they say, you need a village to raise a child. If you don't have the village, be the village. It's all right. You can't keep looking for that village. So time is critical here. And make your decisions fast. You've understood, okay, I am the one who is going to do it, or so and so is helping me. Okay, let us delegate the work. You do this, I do this, I'll try and do this. This is not working, let us do this. One after the other. If I delegate the whole package to somebody, you know, I pay a huge sum of amount and somebody is going to look after my child. Yes, in terms of education, they can. But there is a child, you know, behind that narrow skill building. You know, I do not make my child rote learn anything. It's all about, you know, the skills, the holistic image, right?
So you know what you did, you sort of gave up your own life almost
Which
because
is
you were
fine.
focusing on him.
Yeah.
And today it's amazing that you're saying it is fine, and you know I had a great life, I had a fulfilling life. But in my mind, for somebody who's not had the same experience in life, I think it might be for younger parents today, it might be easier said than done. So when you were a young parent and he was a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year-old, and like you were saying, he was at times hitting his sister who was older than him, 4 years older than him, right? And so it must have been a turbulent environment at home.
Yes.
It's not easy in that turbulent environment to say, I have a great life, I'll do this. What made you bring that mindset? Did you always have this mindset? Or, I mean, initially I'm sure it was tough on you, right? So did you read something? Was it your husband? Was it some doctor? Is there an agency that guides you? How did you change your mind?
I think I was lucky. I had a great mom.
Okay.
Totally focused, you know, so selfless. And I think she devoted her life to her children. So probably it's in my gene bank. And then, of course, your love for your child. I mean, my love for my neurotypical child and my love for this child. So obviously you do it, isn't it? And there is no time to think that time. It's once, you know, those were days. I mean, I'm saying days, those were years. If I could have my way, I could have had my dinner at 6 a.m. before Pranav woke up. So my diary, my plan for the day was ready. I used to kick myself hard for not being able to achieve that on that particular day. And I seriously mean it, that it's fine, because, you know, love and your commitment, no,
Yeah.
commitment is not like, oh my God, it's your love for your child. And different people, yes, will react differently, I know. But for me, that was my life and I was happy. And I found so much comfort in seeing that my daughter very naturally did the same. Obviously, I made sure she had a life of her own. She had her friends, she had her hobbies, she did her own thing. Honestly, when she went overseas, one thought was, you know, it's killing me, my child is away. And the other thought was, I'm so happy she has a life away, because when I pass on, she has to be there for Pranav, like a mother figure.
Right, right.
At least that part she'll fulfill. So I'm glad that she's away, because that beautiful relationship I saw, Pranav and his sister, is more nourished because they are away from each other.
Right.
So that's
Right.
also there. So coming back to what you say, yes, if you ask me, did I envisage a life like this? No, I envisaged a life where I would study and read and study and read. Probably again, my journalist's father's, gene bank, that part probably dictated that to me. I would have been very happy reading and studying. I won't say it falls on you. It just happens. There was no moment I decided that today I'm going to give up what I am and I'm going to devote that to my life. Now, if you ask me, what are your friends? My friends are guilt. My friends are sleeplessness. My friends are that anxiety. I haven't been able to do that. But again, if you ask me, oh, you missed a lot, I didn't. I did, because that is the choice I made. And it has been a worthwhile choice, because that is the time that was required. Now, I travel so extensively for work, and you won't believe, sometimes I'm very amused. I just go to another city. I find so much excitement around me, new place, new airport, because I have not lived that life, you see. So suddenly it's like a sensory overload of new experiences. I quite enjoy that. For somebody, it could be just a visit to another city and probably take a workshop and come back. For me, it's so enriching. It's fine.
Right.
It's their journey. That does not mean that they do not love their children. It's just that they have not been able to put the child's needs, above their own needs.
Right.
No judgment here. It's just that from me it was required, and I think I did that, and I saw beautiful results. And now we have reached a stage where Pranav asserts his independence. That's my biggest victory.
Right. Right.
I
So,
don't think I even blinked. I just followed him like a shadow for years and years and years. And now, that my presence was not intrusive, mind you. It's just that presence behind him, watching him, knowing where he needs that intervention. I was like not all over the place. It was a very passive and very indirect intervention that I always gave him. I still do that if it's required. But now he wants to live alone. Isn't that
wow.
amazing? He wants to live alone. He wants to
Wow.
live on his own. That's the confidence I could give him. And second thing, whenever I suggest something to him, he says, let me think about it and I'll tell you. So he has a mind of his own.
Wow.
So when I say I was there, that does not mean that I overpowered. So I was
Sure.
very judicious. You have to be there for your child and allow your child to grow, and allow the sibling, because sibling bond is very important. I have a great bond with my siblings, and siblings are like your support system. And I feel even he is a support to his sister now.
Wow. So I
In
know,
his own
I know his sister's done very well, and even he's, perhaps one of the role model autism people who've done so well, and I want to come back to that. But before that, I want to go back to the childhood again,
Yeah.
because I'm keen for young parents to learn, understand, and so if you can narrate to us an approximate day of yours,
Okay.
right? How, when you gave up your life and this is all you were doing, what was your day like?
Okay.
In brief, if you
Okay.
can explain to us.
So there are two phases in that phase. One is when I was not working, and one is even I was also working. So
Okay.
and my work was a very nice distraction for me, I must tell you. So the day I'm not working, obviously I'm up at 4 a.m. I could not
4
live
a.m.
beyond that, because that thing. And then I had this beautiful diary. I would write that today I have to do this, the long-term goal and the short-term goal. So I think I was pretty focused on that. So then I would write that. I would even write the words I am going to drop into conversations today, hoping that Pranav will ask me what it means, and he does that. And then he just Googles the meaning very discreetly, and the next thing you know, he's using it in his conversation, and that's so beautiful. I was not wanting a very pedantic language, but I wanted him to be able to express himself well. One day I told him, Pranav, I think this is going to make me a little upset. He said, no, right now you're exasperated. So those nuances also, while I was very keen on teaching him. So I would write that list. And
So wake up at 4 a.m.,
oh yeah,
write your
I
diary.
was done with my planning. See, that's what makes your day streamlined. I can't be planning along the way. So then once Pranav wakes up, then I have to take him through the day. So those were the days when I had to teach him this is how a day pans out. When you get up, you brush your teeth, you bathe, either you go to school or you stay at home. Then we do a little session, then this is your TV time, then this is your eating time. So everything was very streamlined because I had planned in advance. I'm not saying that I did something great, but
Right.
that helped me.
Right.
There were no spontaneous chaotic moments ever because I was always prepared. Then it's time for his sister to come home from school, then that is his time with him. And when I was working, I would do everything with him before he went to school, he went to school, I went to work, and we both came back together. And then we started our own thing. And what works, if you're asking in terms of, helping the young parents, it's structure. Our children thrive on structure. Actually, we all thrive on structure.
Of course.
When my day is structured, I'm very fruitful. When my day is not structured, I'm not fruitful. So probably that's the way I am. And I am very focused towards whether the day is fruitful or not because I'm conditioned that way now.
Right.
I'm a special mom. I do not allow myself the luxury of, oh, I just spend the day in leisure. There are such days, but I enjoy those also once in a while now that he's grown up. So structure helps and planning in advance. I have to do this activity. So what do I need for this activity? Everything should be ready in a basket. That's what special education also teaches you. So I keep all the material on the left, I bring it onto the table, the activity is done, it moves to the right. Back in the day, we used to create our own material. I used to draw a calendar, color it with sketch pen till we had smartphones, and then I discovered, oh, I can take a printout of a calendar and stick it on paper. Technology was never my forte. So I used to create material for him. I used to write the social stories for him every day. It was such a pleasure writing a beautiful social story with 3 endings so that we could teach some social skill to Pranav. Or there sometimes I felt, because the play that my daughter and my son had initially used to be very structured because I had designed that play, and I had designed that play to have some outcome in terms of Pranav learning something. So then I actually used to tell my daughter, then you say this and then I felt bad, but they did have their spontaneous play also.
So wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, yeah.
The day is very structured,
Very
and what I learn is that it is not just structured for the child.
Yeah, for me.
It is structured for the parent
If
also.
I'm structured only, then my child is going to look at me. If I'm looking very bewildered and exasperated and unstructured and I'm losing my patience and I'm running here and there, what is my child looking at?
Right, right.
My child looks at a very calm and composed and focused parent who seems to be in control of things, and my child draws strength from there because that is what children with autism need. They need structure. They need predictability to start with.
Okay.
Then I break all those, and then I make things unstructured, and then I break those predictability. Then you do it deliberately. You deliberately change plans so that your child, later on, because life cannot be so predictable. And then, then Pranav will be like, happens, plans change, and this happens. So, but to start with, you have to start with what like they say, move from known to unknown. I was also studying. I did Montessori and I did so many courses that time. So night time was for study or read about autism, or study my Montessori, or do some other courses and read up on autism, because I know there's mother's instinct, but then there's knowledge available. So one cannot assume that I know it all just because I know my child. That would have been a very big mistake.
Right.
Because there is so much literature, there's so much knowledge out there about how children with autism work. And then you read something and then you know, okay, this is not going to work with my child. And then you leave that. Because you can't impose everything you'll read on your child. Then you know this works. Like with Pranav, firmness never worked. So behavior modification was a very, very which I want to say, we do not want our children to become robots. We cannot be strict with them. We do not have a task which must be done today at the cost of the child's self-esteem. The only thing I did not let happen was compromise on Pranav's dignity and self-esteem. I walked out of spaces.
Any example?
A therapy center, where I felt his dignity is going to be compromised. And I have something, somebody will teach so many skills to my son while I'll sit probably fiddling my fingers, actually in anxiety because God knows what's happening. I used to analyze, is there something wrong with me? Why cannot I delegated a task to somebody else? Do I think like a mother always? I should always think that somebody else can do it for me. But you see, there are some things others will do. You're not an occupational therapist, you're not a special educator. I'm so sorry, you're not a speech therapist. So those tasks others will do because you're not qualified to do that. You can only generalize that skill and offer a variety of settings in which the child can use that skill.
Sure.
But otherwise, you cannot delegate a task to somebody and assume it is happening.
Right.
So in my, back in the day, you didn't have so much. Now, things are pretty structured, I know. So there were opportunities were few and far between, and there were less setups. And I always prioritized on Pranav's dignity. I did not want him to be spoken to in an intimidating voice, which I assumed. I used to do self analysis.
Right.
Am I being overprotective? Is it a firm tone or is it an condescending tone? No,
Right.
and I used to tell myself maybe I'm imagining it is condescending, but then I had to give credit to my imagination. And that time, you also worry that I hope, because there's no manual to read that, okay,
Yeah.
do this. You make mistakes also. I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
I made a lot of mistakes. Everybody does. Every parent, it will resonate with every parent. But then I did not make a mistake where his self-respect was concerned. Always, always, I used to take his permission.
Wow.
I still do.
Wow.
We still take his permission. And
So despite everything, you were giving him a lot of
yes,
place and
yes. See, again, there can be this situation. Well, I left everything, so this child better response, and this child, so it's never like that. You're doing your bit, the child will learn at his or her own pace, which he did. Some skills he picked, and some skills I used to plan, okay, this is going to happen in 2 weeks, then it's like done in a jiffy, and I have nothing else to do now. So then we are playing puzzles because I have nothing else planned for the day. And there are some skills which will take time. But those skills can be done faster if I have that sense of authority and I'm condescending and the child feels I cannot get away, I must do it. It never happened. Even when he was grown up, if we had a task on the table, if we are doing a worksheet and Pranav fancies going for a photo walk, we would just get up and go for a photo walk. We'll just sit in the car and go wherever he wants. And he clicks whatever pictures he wants. He turned into an award-winning photographer, completely self-taught.
wow.
And he used to be hired by people to come and take pictures for the events. And he was very young then, he was just 16. And again, we decided that we want him to do something which is aligned to his basic skills. That's why we decided to put him into graphic designing. We were not sure of the outcome.
Right.
He showed skill, he did not show promise. That's another thing. When we invest our things, we expect a promise. We should not.
Yeah.
Look at the neurotypical children, how much freedom we give them.
Yeah.
They leave their courses, they do their own thing. It's just that they have the ability to convince us. They can use words, they can negotiate, they can manipulate. I don't mean manipulate in the negative way.
Sure, sure.
But they can manipulate situations to success. So with our children, we have to allow them the same thing. Just because I have worked hard today does not mean my child should respond that much. I have to leave my child at that. And that is why there are so many things Pranab doesn't want to talk about. He has a huge aversion to people who raise their voices.
Oh.
Yeah. And who he perceives as aggressive. Sometimes I feel maybe he didn't see that, but then I think that's all right. Why should he even be in the same space as aggressive people who raise their voices or who, who shout or scream? He has an innate disliking for such people because it never happened to him in his growing years that we put him in a situation where this happens. And I was told sometimes that Pranav should get used to all tones. I could never bring myself to accept that.
Right.
There was a lot of self-doubt here though.
Right.
Because I thought that I'm creating a very curated world for him. I'm not going to be around forever. What will happen? But what happened was he acquired the ability to judge. He acquired the ability to know how a person is behaving with him and how a person responds in a situation, then he developed this ability to decide
Wow.
whether he wants to be with that person or not. Isn't that a great thing?
Amazing.
That's more important than, knowing all your math and your numbers and which was the, ironically, I'm an educationist, but that was the last of my concerns. And I really thank God for proving me right here. Because it's the last of, who is asking me which chapter had which questions and which answer? Nobody. It's the soft skills.
Right.
Soft skills are difficult, especially because you have autism. So let's work on the soft skills, because no matter how empowered we make our child, he or she has to live in this world, which is governed by neurotypical people, actually, right? So then if they learn how to negotiate here, half the battle is won.
The experience that you're sharing and how you managed and how you gave him the confidence and you gave him the space and you almost treated him like a peer.
Yes.
And not condescending like
Never.
this dumb kid or
Oh my
whatever.
God, never.
Seems to me like not just a great learning for parents with autistic children, seems like a great parenting lesson for everybody, right? That treat your child like a human being and not just like a robot that you've created who you want should do this
Yes.
and should do this and should do this.
It shouldn't happen.
Right. So again, the question that comes back to my mind, and I don't know if it's an unfair question, is how did you get this knowledge? Were you just genetically a great parent, or are there sources that people can look at? Are there people, coaches, companies, counselors, mentors, doctors who gave you this knowledge? One is knowledge about how do you deal with a kid with autism.
Yeah.
The second part that you've narrated to me almost seems like parenting,
Yes.
right? So where did you get all this from?
So of course the gene bank, our dad never raised his voice at us, and all of us are very well behaved, I thought, individuals, and of course my mom. So you always, of course, have that precedent.
So one is that your parents were very
Yeah.
gentle and always gave you the space, and
Yes. Amazing, and allowed us, and they did not encroach on our this thing. At the same time, it was a very, for me, I'm from Chandigarh, a small town, a very protective upbringing at the same time. But I could read, I could study, within that parameter, I could do a lot. So, no, I did not have any outside factor influencing me.
Okay.
That's the way I was, not just with Pranav, but with my daughter as well.
So Pranav and Nikita are lucky to have great grandparents who produced a great mom for them.
No. I think we all rise to the occasion. I mean,
Yeah.
let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly what you're saying is that your parents brought you up in a manner
Yes, I think
which you
so.
use with your kids.
Yeah. There was no control, there was no aggression, and there was no trying to, trying to prove that they are a part of our lives. We were allowed to
Right.
be ourselves. And, there are some parents who can control the lives of their
Right,
children.
right.
I didn't know any other upbringing. I just knew only mine. So I took it as natural.
Right.
But yes, when my daughter came along, I was very loving with her. So I know this is my instinct also.
So that's the second part of my childhood question. How did you deal with the two of them? Because your daughter was
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
with any condition,
Yeah.
right? So Nikita was absolutely
Yes.
no
Yeah.
autism or other condition, whereas Pranav
Yeah.
at 2.5, you realize has autism.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming the behavior to the two children needs to be slightly different.
Yes.
Pranav needs more
Yes.
sort of supervision, and Nikita doesn't need that supervision, but they are growing up together. At times, you said Pranav was hitting her.
Oh, yes.
So, how was that managed?
When you asked me about the doctors and counselors, there was nobody. It came from within. That's the parent I was. 100% there. I was not working that time at all. Absolutely, in sync with my daughter. So when Pranav came along, suddenly I actually abandoned her. It's a fact, because he was critically ill. He barely survived. And then, 1.5 years later, it was, his autism. And then again, I won't say I literally abandoned her then, yeah, but there were, gaps.
Understandable.
So as she grew up, I explained it to her. We used to, there was no, let's sit down and talk now. It's nothing like that. Along the way, that, Nikita, Pranav has this condition, Pranav has autism, he needs more of my time, that's why I'm giving him more of my time. There were days when I knew that I've not even looked at her. She's come back from school, children were very big on watching cartoons that time.
Yeah, yeah.
She's watched her cartoons, and then I've probably taken her to the park for half an hour, and like I'm in a hurry to come back because, I've taken Pranav and he is not able to sustain himself there for more than half an hour. All that has happened. But explaining the sibling along the way, if we do not do that, then the sibling is antagonized, because the sibling either feels there's so much of time and attention to the other child, or the sibling feels that the, you know the lives are, are separate verticals. Like the other day, some parent was telling me that the sibling says, this one is lucky, doesn't have to take 10th or 12th exams, I'm the one who's stressed. So now, probably with due respect to what the parents did, along the way, one has to sensitize the neurotypical sibling of the challenges this one is facing. Taking a 10th and 12th exam is not the only challenge. The life is actually a big challenge for neurodiverse people. And her challenges are different from hers. There were two sisters there. So I don't know, but again, I followed my instinct. Nikita and I talked a lot, and then we became partners. So every credit would go to her. So it was so motivating for her that she is doing her thing. She was that proper lady, things are spick and span, and Pranav was a tornado. He would come, he would demolish all her doll houses, and he had this thing, which they still talk about. He would pick up her Barbie dolls and he would chew on their feet.
Oh my God.
God knows why. And she would be like,
Yeah.
Mom, my Barbie dolls, and the slippers are gone. And then if she has a dance class, he's entering there and he's being a general nuisance. But then we made it funny. We made it, it not funny means laughing at the expense of Pranav. Oh, Nikita, Pranav is like that, and you know how he does. He still has his quirks. We still so it's there. It can't change. Your attitude makes all the difference. So two things happened. Nikita thought in her own innocent way that she is responsible for her brother. So she did a lot of things lovingly.
At what age did that happen? I mean, Nikita was
So when,
six-ish when Pranav was
yeah, no,
two and a half.
yeah, when 6, so she was 7 and 8. At that time, children need their own thing. So
Yeah,
when,
yeah. So at what stage did she start
so let's say she's 7
understanding
and 8, and Pranav needs all the intervention now. He needs me like 24/7. She's 7 and 8. I did try to do the typical things parents do, put her in some activity so that she has a drawing and she has a dance, and then thankfully she had a couple of friends. But then I was making them sit together. There was a time when Pranav had to be taught, separately, because he needed so much structure. Even her presence would be a diversion or distraction. But we did everything together. We were eating together, we were watching TV together, we were going to the park together. Only that study time was different. I know I juggled when he watched TV, we did her homework and all that. But nowhere did I tell her, oh my God, I have to do this. So she understood that this is something that is being done joyfully. It is being, so it's about how you present it. Had I presented to her her sorry state because she has a brother who's a nuisance, when Nikita's friends would come and Pranav would hit them.
Oh,
Yeah. So imagine how difficult it is for a little child. So for him, he doesn't know any better.
right.
For her, because she wants to protect him, but then, it's like, he's hitting.
Right.
So then also I would say, no, 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 you're not supposed to show any reaction when he hits, But then everything she did, she was very compliant there. So when I say compliant, it's not that she had to do everything and she did not have any say. But then because we started seeing the results and because of the affection she had for him, I think everything fell into place. And when I say everything fell into place, it took a decade. It's not, it doesn't happen in a jiffy. She became very protective about him. I mean, we have a WhatsApp group and you should see the way they gang up against me. It's so delightful. I write in that group Pranav, I think we should do this. And she sends me a separate message. Why are you yelling at him? I said, yelling? I've never yelled at both of you. No, no, no. This sounds very like directed. So that's the level of protection she has for him.
Wow.
And the same he has for her. Because eventually it's the siblings together. I'm not going to be there forever. I mean,
Right.
without any trace of melodrama, I'm saying that because
Right.
we need to
Absolutely.
prepare them for life after us too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Coming back to your question, it is how you make the sibling perceive the situation. You have to take it positively. Even so, I must tell you, so when it was time for both of us to tell Pranav of his autism, because he was growing up, he was becoming very aware of how different he was. Sometimes children wouldn't play with him. When he went to the park, they would go away. And this is the time when his behaviors had, I won't say improved, he'd gotten, I need to respect every part of his thing. Like he had moved towards very appropriate behaviors, but still he was different. And that time he was a big fan of all these Marvel characters. And we sat him down. I still remember the moment. That's the moment we sat down and we both told him that, Pranav, we need to tell you something, and I have a superpower, and Nikita talked of some superpower she had, and I talked of some superpower I had. And Pranav, you also have a superpower. Do you know what is a superpower? It is autism, and it makes you strong, and it makes you have special powers like your favorite Marvel character. So that was a scaffolding we used then. And Pranav believes it, that Iron Man has this. And I had to do so much research because when I used to take him for Marvel movies, I used to catch up on sleep. I would buy coffee, sleep next to him. He would watch the movie and we would
Oh
come
my
home.
God.
But then, he started asking questions. Then I had to read up on all these Marvel characters and I had to know, okay, these were the Guardians of the Galaxy and these are the DC characters and these are the Marvel
Wow.
characters. So then, you do your own research. And then this whole labyrinth got created. So every time we go and see, even now, when Iron Man died, when these Marvel characters now fail, so when we come back, there's silence, and then Pranav and I sit down and we talk. See, Pranav, even superpowers cannot work all the time. Even superheroes fail because that thing that was introduced at 11 at a very literal stage cannot go on for the rest of your life. So even superpowers have nuances. Sometimes they work, sometimes, and I love the way these Marvel movies are coming up because they'll make these Marvel characters confess that they failed. So
Right.
that works so beautifully for us. So that's our way of talking about it.
Right.
Even
Right.
people. So Pranav has a very positive, upbeat idea about his condition. He has the ability to be very politically correct. He hides his feelings and then will quietly whisper them to me or my daughter or even his dad, of course, whatever he feels
Sure.
about things. And he has learned to understand the limitations and not accept them.
Hmm.
And that is the best thing. He will keep working on things. He doesn't want my intervention. And
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
beautiful is that?
Yeah.
So, you were asking about the time when I was there 24/7 to the time when automatically I've been weaned out of the situation, weaned off and out of the situation. And his attempt is to manage. His biggest triumph is when he managed anything without my support.
Right. Right.
So, that has been the prognosis.
See, again, this last bit that you explained to me shows me the level of hands-on work that you did as a mom. If you know more about Marvel and all these characters than me, then clearly you really, mostly women are not so much into all these things. But yeah, so I mean, clearly you've done a lot of,
Oh, yeah.
research and watched these movies
Oh,
and
yes.
and all that. So it shows me that the parent has to get so involved.
And that is not what I'm naturally inclined towards.
Of course, I understand. But you know
All
about
the
Iron Man
violence.
and you know about what
Oh,
they're
yeah.
doing, and
Oh,
so it's
yes.
quite impressive and admirable.
I think any parent would also. So I was very fond of reading. I'll tell you something very interesting. So because he has a very photogenic memory, and then he's right. He saw there's this author Amitav Ghosh, and he saw his picture somewhere. He's telling me this is Amitav Ghosh, and I'm like, how do you know? He wrote Sea of Poppies, and I'm like, okay. you read that book, he has a fantastic memory. In
Okay.
2011, you were maybe at night, I was trying to catch up on some reading till I actually lost the plot and I just don't have time to read anymore. And you were reading that book. Then obviously he and I started reading together. So I think this is what any parent must do and should do, because whatever is now, there are some things he's like cars. I'm not completely into cars, so thank God dad takes care of that part. I wouldn't be bothered about cars. I just
Right.
know cars through their colors. Can you believe it? This is my car because this is this in color, and I don't give a damn to other cars.
Right.
But that does not mean that if Pranav shows interest in cars, I will not know. Thankfully, I can delegate that part to
Right.
his dad. But if I was not able to do that, I would have done that, and any parent should have, because there you are able to answer the child's questions.
Sure.
And his and our our children, I mean, they have such an idealistic, clear view of the world. The other day somebody asked him a rather open-ended question: what do you want? Although it was an interview setup, but Pranav could not get the context. He said, I don't want Israel and Hamas to fight. So, I found that answer because he's very hooked on to news and he works with a news agency. I'm glad he is. So, I thought it came from nowhere, and it was so beautiful because I did not know that, he forms that impression in his mind that these countries or, these organizations or whatever, they're uselessly fighting and there's so much of bloodshed and people die. He wants a very, although that's his autism, he wants a very structured world.
Yeah.
He wants, world to have interest in what he has interest in, that is his English music and his love for Mumbai.
Okay.
And he wants to talk about that all the time. Well, that's autism, and then that's all right. We also have our own interests. It's
Right.
just that we can manipulate situations and understand, okay, the other person is not so interested in listening about this, so let me talk about it. So we must know what our children know.
Right.
That's important.
Right. Yeah. So I want to get your insight into his growing years and how did he form, how did he grow, how did he develop his skills. And I know today he's a very successful young man. From that 2.5 till how old is he now?
He's 24.
24. So in the last 22 years, if you can quickly tell us, how did the 24-year-old Pranav become who he is today?
So he became what he is today because somehow he had he showed very clear inclinations. So there I was lucky. I didn't have to like find out what he wants. Of course, I wanted friends for him. Of course, he had autism. Of course, he didn't have friends. Not many, a few here and there. So there his cousins bailed him out. So he has a group of cousins. His cousin used to be in Gurgaon. Now he's relocated to America. And thanks to him, Pranav's childhood was amazing because they were spending weekends, literally every weekend together.
Wow.
And God bless him, he's Krishiv. And because of him, Pranav developed so many of skills, seamlessly. He knew so much about the movies which were trending and those boy things, thanks to him. So that is the friendship and the
So at every
socialization.
stage, family played a big role.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does. It always does. I mean, more often than not, you're alone, but then wherever your support comes, it's very useful.
Okay.
So he showed very clear inclinations. Like he would draw so well. I could figure out that let's put him into drawing. He had a good ear for music. For some reason he stopped playing music, and I respect that. He put his Casio in a cupboard, closed it, wrote outside on the cupboard with permanent sketch pen, "Do not disturb, do not disturb, Mike." And I was very uncomfortable for a couple of years. I thought maybe I can get him to do that again.
Right.
But then I respect that. Then I also realized that probably he's outgrown. So that's fine. And then he showed a lot of promise in photography. Then we would go for photo walks, and one thing led to the other. He was clicking very good pictures, although I still feel he deletes the best ones, but that's my perspective. That's not his. My heart, hey, don't delete this one, and off it goes.
Right.
Because it's how he perceives things. When he was small, he would look at things like this, And I don't know how he got it. He would do this, and I would I don't know what. So he would try to get things into frame. That was self-taught.
Right.
So he did well as a photographer. He was hired by Spaces. He was very young that time. He was just 16. And he won a couple of awards and he showed promise. And then
So
because he
interest
was
in music, interest in photography.
yeah, and then because of the sketching thing, I thought let me try graphic designing. He just took to graphic designing. He loves it painstakingly. He works on vectors. I know there is AI to sort things for us, but there's nothing like watching this young man painstakingly work on a vector for hours and create a masterpiece.
Right.
And he's done some very prestigious, assignments. And then, of course, his modeling. There was no context.
How did modeling happen?
Yeah, there was no context. There was no talk of modeling. I mean, nobody talks of, I mean, for me, I mean, with due respect to the profession, I would be eating my words later. I would be very condescending about it because
Right.
I'm, in a different space, and there was so much talk of my daughter could do it and she didn't want to do it and she wanted to study, and that's it. That's it. So it happened because Pranav is an excellent mimic. You
Okay.
have to see him I mean, he catches the nuances of people's conversations, their mannerisms very well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought let me take him to a theatre workshop and maybe there, he'll exercise his drama skills. But they introduced modeling completely as an activity. They drew a line on the floor. आप सब बच्चे यहाँ पर चलेंगे और हम म्यूजिक बजाएंगे and I'm like half there, half not there. Let them do this activity. I
Right.
was there. And Pranav just took to it. My initial thought was that the therapist is very sweet. And second thing, Pranav was crazily into English music. So obviously they play that pulsating music when you
Right.
walk, and he was into that what's that? Dub smash stage that time, and he was making those dub smashes and listening to music all the time and all that he was doing. And he wanted to do that on a repeat. He did not want to come back. Then he started asking me, when are we going back to Mumbai? Because I want to do that again. And then he started looking at models and he was like, I want to do this. Then I thought it's a passing fancy. Because seriously, although
Sure.
I was very tuned into what he wants, then he saw models on the screen. Then he understood that what I learned there is this is how it happens. I want to be a model. And then my daughter stepped in. She said, "Why did you laugh?" I said, "I laughed at the impossibility of the idea."
Right.
She said, "No, like everybody else, he must try." And by that time, Pranav was very, very comfortable in his, thought process. I want to do this, and this is required. I do not know this, this, this. I will learn this, this, and do this. That obsessive trait of autism has proved to be a blessing in many situations for Pranav, because you become very focused. When you become focused, you work towards it. He has that cognizance that he has to work towards this and not just have it because he wants it. That has also come with training and with experience and understanding. So I told
So
him.
what's his current
So
situation? What careers is he into?
So let me tell you. So then we sat down and we told him, Pranav, you're very tall, and that's what models are. But then you just don't need to be tall, you need to be fit. That started another journey of Pranav. He's still a fitness enthusiast. He does deadlifts. We started with Pranav learning to hold a pen with great difficulty. And now you should see him in his gym every day. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's religion for him, fitness. That also happened. Then the mother was writing 100 mails, and the mails were not answered. He said, doesn't matter. We'll write more mails. Because, that focus on what you want.
Yeah.
It's a very necessary life skill. I've learned that with Pranav, because if I persevere, I'll be able to do what I want. And then what happened? I started writing those mails, and one or couple of the mails were answered. He got opportunities. Now, when he walks the ramp, that's the irony. He's like any other model. So you don't know there is a young man walking and he has autism. So he had to prove himself probably more, because it's an invisible condition.
Right.
If you have, let's say, I mean, with due respect to every specially abled person in the country and in the world, suppose you have a special condition which is visible, then you can see that okay, this person has made this effort and done this. So in his case, it was invisible, and he got some very good assignments. And he enjoyed it, he still wants to do it. Hopefully the assignments will keep coming, although it's a very difficult competitive world. Along the way, obviously, I as a mom, and even my daughter felt that we should not, really bank on that as a career.
Okay.
Because he was a promising graphic designer already.
Okay.
And we decided to apply for an internship for him in Thomson Reuters because he was watching a lot of news basically.
Okay.
So we thought that it's a news agency and probably they'll use his graphic designing skills or whatever. We had no context, we just applied. So he went through the, like in modeling, let me come back to modeling, there are auditions. And there are times when he doesn't get selected, and that's the best part of it. Pranav has to learn that also. So I tell him, Pranav, you did not get selected because you did not suit the look. Now for him, it was like suit the look. What does that mean? So I had to explain that to him. Probably I used to tell him, probably you're more chocolate faced and probably, a different kind of look was required. That's a learning in your job you need to do. So for Reuters, they took him for an internship. They tried him in different spaces. And finally, he fitted the bill in the production team, and this is his 3rd year with Reuters.
Wow.
And what I see, what he takes to the table, I mean, obviously, the fact that he's there, I'm sure that he's lucky to be in that space. What I see him taking to the table there is 100% commitment and focus. So that's what I say. When we say, oh, people with autism have tunnel vision and they are so super focused. Of course, obsessions is something you deal with, and Pranav has his obsessions, and his obsessions have taken him places, and I'm sure it will happen in the future. But the focus he has, I see that hunger in him, to do his best every day. When we go to our workplaces, we also WhatsApp people.
Yeah.
We also, find time to do this or that. He's not doing any of that. He's just focused. And he understands instructions, follows through, respects the timelines, respects the structure. That's my part of the story of how, because I don't know how it happens and how he works.
So if he's at work and you call him, he will not be very happy.
No, he will not. I'm not sure whether he's happy or not. He will not answer.
Oh.
And then he'll tell me. Then I tell him, Pranav, it was important. I was traveling. I wanted to speak to you about this, but I was working. So I have to catch him during his breaks, during work. He gets his breaks. So he does a 2 p.m. onward shift till 9 p.m. So we say that people with autism, thrive on structure. So who will not thrive on structure? He starts his day at 6:30. He spends 1.5 hours in the gym. He works out with his trainer. He sits down for graphic designing for 3 hours. And then he works till the end of the day, watches his news for half an hour. Then it's his responsibility to lock the entire house, check the cars, check the gates, and then that's a day well spent.
Right.
So there are 2 ways. One is, oh my God, what a terrible life.
Right.
And one is, it's a fruitful life. It depends on how you look at it. If somebody is a naysayer or somebody has to look at it negatively, that person can say that. But why not have a fruitful life?
Right.
Why just while away your time? Why not be, if a person thrives on structure by virtue of his or her condition, all the more reason that you give structure. So the person in that optimum environment, the person will do his or her best.
Totally agree.
And then even his free time, he's working on his first book, he's typing away, and when you were saying about how a mother does it naturally or instinctively or somebody tutors, even our children are observing us, are making mental notes. Because he allowed me to read one episode where he's written that I bought him one of these Marvel characters, and it was an expensive one. These merchandise is awfully expensive. And then I took him to the park and he threw it up and it got stuck in a tree, and that's the end of it. So I know for sure, I remember that incident. I did not, raise my voice or something, but I did tell him, Pranav, you threw it in the tree and now it's gone, and I must have said it's expensive or something. So he's written that mom thought that I've been naughty, that I've thrown it up. I was basically trying to see if it can fly and it got stuck in the tree.
Right.
And there are instances where he's written transference was a big issue. So if we have to take him from a preferred place to somewhere else, there is to be a full-blown tantrum there. And then he's writing about one tantrum he's thrown in City Fort complex, because I used to take him there for swimming because it's time to come home and this complex is shutting down, but this guy won't come home. I was throwing a tantrum. and my mother was being very patient. So now he has the language and the ability to reflect. So I'm not saying that I did that so that later, he should talk about it or think about it. But even our children make a note of how we respond and react. So basically, it's very simple. Uh, we should respond to situations and not react. Because if we're reacting, then everything is,
Very
boiling
well
and
said.
everything. So if I respond to a situation, it's mindful, it's thought about, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. I've given my child to settle down. If my child is snapping and I snap back, then what's the point? Then, it's not.
Then you're both children.
Yes, then go back and then give the child time and then talk about it. And there's always a very valid reason. Once the child learns to express meaningfully, and that takes time, and in each child it's a different journey, then
Right.
it's different. Then the child is expressing himself or herself meaningfully through it's not many of our children on the autism spectrum are non-verbal. That doesn't mean they can't communicate. They communicate beautifully through pictures, through writing, and that it's amazing to see them through iPads. So it's about communicating, not how. But if they can communicate, then they are able to say what, like Pranav had this obsession with Mr. Bean. I thought it's one of those obsessions. Till he told me later in the day, he had a very soft corner for Mr. Bean because he thought that he's not able to express himself, and nor was Pranav able to. So he had that
Wow.
bonding of empathy with him,
Wow.
which was such a delightful revelation for me later in the day. And he mimics him very well also. And
So the same 2, 3, 4-year-old Pranav who would fight with his sister and who would have all the challenges
oh yeah,
at 24
yeah.
has a strong bond with his sister.
Is the most, I'm sorry, I know this is a mother's pride, but I'm saying it with due modesty. He's the most amiable,
Beautiful.
sorted, mature young man that you can see.
So nice.
So all that has been processed, and he's very insightful, he's very intelligent, can predict people, can predict situations, knows how to handle a situation beautifully.
And he's in his third year of Thomson Reuters
Yes, yes,
job,
yes, yes.
and he's a model,
Yes, and he's a graphic designer.
and he's a graphic designer.
And he works out and he watches all the movies, and you should see him enjoying his cheat meals because he's a fitness freak. So and he plans his cheat meals. So I get very tempted. Pranav, let's eat this. But he's already planned his cheat meal. No, it is going to be that, so I cannot
Right,
eat this. With
right.
a god-like control over his instincts.
Right.
Because fitness is an obsession. So obsession is not bad. Actually, we should turn around that thing about, people with autism have obsessions. We should turn it around into something positive. And people use that, I am obsessed with this. I've seen neurotypical people
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that. It's just that we know how to, where to draw a line.
Yeah.
Pranav tells me so disarmingly. We've already talked about Mumbai since morning. But I want to talk about it more because it's an obsession with me. How beautiful is that? He's telling me it's an obsession. So I sometimes ask him, how many times more? He'll tell me 5 times. So we talk about
But I guess he's able to say it to you
because we gave him that.
because you give him that space, and he knows he will
And
not get
words.
judged.
And also, you have to help facilitate the child in knowing that you have to say this instead of expressing it in different ways.
Right, right.
So every situation demands a statement or a way to express. So that is where probably I work the most. And I'm not saying that it is because of this, because it's not my input, it's his response. I would never take credit for my input. I would give credit to how he responded to that. Basically, we all need ways to express ourselves.
Yeah,
Now, Mumbai is a big obsession. He doesn't want to live here. He doesn't want to live in Delhi. He wants to move to Mumbai. Like any other person, he has a right to pursue. He sees his sister. She has this apartment and she lives, an
Sisters in
independent
Australia.
life. Yeah. So he
Yeah.
role models her.
Right.
That he's also going to be like her, and he's also going to live independently, and he's also going to have an independent life.
Right.
So that's very good for me because she's always been a role model.
Right.
And obviously, there are practical implications which would stop me from making that happen. But if that can happen, it's beautiful.
Right.
Because obviously, that everything cannot happen is also a learning.
Right.
We also want so many things, and so
Yeah.
many things don't happen.
Yeah.
But right now we're in a good space because I spend a lot of time away.
Okay.
And we work. There are sometimes I micromanage and macromanage. Of course, I do that. And we are constantly connected when I'm traveling. And I also tell him that, okay, Pranav, I will not be available for these 3-4 hours. But otherwise, his ability to handle and tackle situations. Because if I'm not um, there as a presence, I'm always there somewhere in the back for him. And there's so many situations that come without any warning. He doesn't want to eat, something, or there's another situation which he's used to handling only with me. So I'm handling it from a distance, like his sister does from a distance. So that is also a step towards independent living. And why shouldn't he have an independent life?
Absolutely.
That's what honestly I worked for. There should be an independent life, and one feels that okay, one can progress towards a few more skills maybe, and then why not? Why not?
So, one of the things you said in the early part of this conversation is that we as parents want that after us,
Yes.
our children are able to lead a decent life and
Yes.
capable life and all
Yes.
that. And that is perhaps one of the fears that I think all parents have when children are very young.
Yes.
Clearly, Pranav has become a 24-year-old adult who's doing a job, doing photography, writing a book, he's doing multiple things. Are there any fears that you have today?
Apprehensions,
Okay.
not fears. That obviously that he should be able to. Again, it's an apprehension. I know he'll, obviously make sure that my apprehension stays only an apprehension. Lead a fulfilling life independently. And for that, we need a little bit of support from the people at large, a little bit of awareness, a little bit of understanding that, he can manage, of course, but there will be some situations, there will be a little processing delay, there will be a little challenge in catching. So, if we go out to eat, we all know how to catch the eye of that person who's serving us and ask for the bill. For Pranav, I mean, it's a challenge because he'll be so polite. He's busy there. He's busy there. He's busy there.
Okay.
So obviously we've crossed that. So
Right.
when Starbucks came, I mean, my only interest in was, wow, what a beautiful complicated process, because you order, then they write the name on the cup mug, and the mug goes
Then
there.
they announce your name.
Then they announce your name. So for me, it was a beautiful. I mean, I didn't know what the coffee tasted like. I still don't know, but I loved the process.
Right.
And also, like some dreams, like suppose you want to learn to drive, then it's not just you, it's about the others. We can equip him. His sister is going to be there. But, suppose, anything, any situation which he is not able to handle. Like I said, these are apprehensions. So what do you do with the apprehensions? You don't sit on them. You start visualizing scenarios and you keep working on them.
Yeah.
Like I do very plain talk with my daughter without any this thing that, oh, one day I'm not going to be there. Nothing like that. It's a very matter of fact talk that this is what you have to do. This is how I sometimes think. I mean, because he wants to live in Mumbai, sometimes I plan, she's there, she's going to be a citizen there. Maybe Pranav will go there eventually. So he loves visiting her and he loves the experience. So he must get used to the lives in both the continents. Very matter of fact talk. And if we leave our children with money, that doesn't help. They need to know how to handle that money. They need that smartness which they intrinsically don't have.
Right.
It's an acquired skill. Now that acquired skill also has a gradation. I mean, we are getting fooled with all those messages and people, there's so much fraud happening, people will empty your banks. All these things obviously make you think that you will have to stay on the top of the game. You have to even prepare your child for this.
Yeah.
And in Pranav's idealistic world, I have to introduce all these shady characters and all these, robbers and murderers and all these things, safety.
Right.
That you need to be safe, you need to this. So apprehensions are many.
Right. Right.
So if you think Pranav, 24-year-old young man doing so many things, the mother is sorted. No, the mother is not sorted. When you reach a particular stage, challenges also reinvent themselves. Challenges become different. Challenges probably become more complicated. Challenges become vague. They're not tangible. One has to imagine them. So one has to stay abreast. One cannot, think, oh, I have done my bit now. No, it is done.
Right.
So it's just that at this stage, the child has become a full grown adult, is not a child anymore, decides what he wants to do, decides how he wants to do it, respect that, and be a scaffolding somewhere in the back, while assuming and apprehending certain situations and working towards that.
Right.
Now you have to
Right.
preempt certain things, that
Yeah.
this is going to happen, this might happen, and prepare the child accordingly.
Right. Right.
That's very important.
At the start of this conversation, my thought was there will be a lot of medical conversation. There will be a lot of what
No, Pranav has a
treatment.
very complicated medical history also.
Sure.
And I make him very aware that, okay, today we are going to a gastroenterologist and this is what he or she takes care of. When
Sure.
you were small, we went to a neurologist because this has happened. And we went to this person. And then he says, yeah, then all that happened. Then I made my condition into my superpower. Oh,
Right.
by the way, Pranav's catchphrase is, autism is my superpower.
Wow.
Yeah, and he says this very, very often. It's not a
Yeah.
it's not a disease. It's a superpower. Many of individuals on the spectrum have underlying medical conditions.
Right.
They do have.
Okay.
So those have to be treated separately. So autism per se does not have a cure.
Right.
There will be many tricksters. There will be many, people who will try. One is vulnerable as a parent.
Yeah.
I've had many experiences where people have tried to tell me how they can help me.
Yeah.
I mean, the religion route. I'm a very God-fearing religious person, but I know, I mean, if I, believe in Lord Krishna, he tells me, do your karma. So the case is rested. I don't need any other intervention as far as the religion is concerned. And otherwise, people will give you medicines, there's some kind of therapies which are very shady. So we should avoid all that. As a parent, I must understand it's a neurological condition.
Right. Right.
My child's brain is wired differently than a neurotypical brain.
Right.
So then what happens? My child thinks differently, responds differently. His or her social and emotional understanding is different.
Right.
But my child has to live in this neurotypical world. It's actually very simple. So what I have to do? I have to make sure my child learns the ways of this world, retains his or her individuality, self-respect, dignity, but learns the ways of my world. Why my world? Because mine is a neurotypical world.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I can love my child the most, but I cannot create a world for my child.
Yeah,
And beyond a point, I cannot sensitize people.
Yeah.
I'm very happy good things are happening. There are job opportunities. Pranav was invited to the President House
Wow.
for the at-home ceremony. Now, his is an invisible disability.
Right.
I saw so many people asking Pranav about, his presence there. And then he explains that, okay, I have autism. And then, because he looks like any other young man.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably as well turned out. He's very fond of, looking proper. And that's another thing. Why do we only focus on that, tabletop activity? Why shouldn't our children look well turned out? I'm not going to use any superficial terms, but they should be able to hold a conversation. It's also very important. Like I mentioned in the beginning, soft skills.
Yeah.
I need to, when I get a job, I show my certificates. After that, it's my soft skills. How do I retain my job? How do I manipulate my
Absolutely.
situation to the best of, ability, to my best of ability, to the advantage of my, employer and to myself? That's all that's the skill.
Yeah.
Obviously, a person with autism will not learn all that in a very nuanced way, but that person can try. So, there are a lot of therapies though. Young parents really need to take the route of occupational therapy. There is sensory integration because in autism, your senses do not work in a very harmonious way. When Pranav was small, his hands were on his ears because he could not take some sounds. I could not wash clothes. I had to wash clothes when Pranav was away. I mean, I had piles of laundry in the house because I thought Pranav is fast asleep and he'll come running even if the doors are closed because his the radio will be like silent and he's telling you this song is playing. He can hear that because our children have very pronounced and very acute sense of hearing or visual scanning. His visual scanning is also amazing. You ask him about any incident and he'll be like, actually flipping the calendar in his mind and then he'll go back, 13 April 2011. So anything you want to know, he's a ready reference what happened in life.
Wow.
So for these things, and it's not just Pranav, many of the individuals on the spectrum have these skills. So therapies are important. Sensory integration, from there Pranav reached a stage where he is a big EDM fan. So these marshmallows and these artists come and there is stampede and there is people drinking and falling on each other, and he is able to just focus on the music and dance for all those 4 hours.
Wow.
He is able to shut out all that, and many of them are able to. So sensory integration is very important, occupational therapy is very important, speech therapy is very important, special education is very important. Nowadays things have really come of age. There are centers where all these things are provided, and if the parent and the therapy centers work in tandem, and if they understand each other, I'm sure there will be good results, because when Pranav was small, there wasn't much of this available. One had to fall back on one's own resources. At that time, I feel I did not even have those resources. I could not even shell out that kind of money. And I thought, and plus I had this thing that no, I need my child, I know my child the best. Like I told you, I even had self-doubt that I hope I'm not making a mistake. I need to learn to delegate. I never learned to delegate. And I mean, I feel that probably that helped.
Yeah.
Because you also instinctively know your child the best.
Yeah.
And another thing is that we do not need to get so caught up in the study part. We need to look at the skill, identify the skill. There is so much of vocational training happening. Our children can get into so many things. They can get into cooking, graphic designing, photography. I mean, the list is endless.
Yeah.
Their personality should be aligned to the skill they are learning. Otherwise, it's miserable. Imagine doing a job which you hate.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love our jobs, so we look forward to them. And if we don't love our jobs, then it's an ordeal. So this is what the parents also need to do. Otherwise, it's a better place to be. There's so much of awareness. There are initiatives by the government to actually work on these. The NGOs are working towards it. People, I mean, we have a long way to go.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not in any way trying to project any rosy picture. I'm just doing a comparative study of the prognosis, how it has happened.
Understood.
We still need to go. I mean, Pranav is employed. And I feel, we are very blessed that he could be employed with a, news agency like Reuters, and they have, provisions to employ special needs individuals, and there will be other organizations.
Oh yes, I'm sure.
So if we work on those skills, I mean, it's a good place to be.
Amazing. My biggest learning from this conversation today is, of course, the fact that there is therapy and there is special education and there are companies which will employ, but my takeaway is that the biggest factor is that the parents need to believe
in the child.
And believe in themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that self-belief, that parents need to believe that we will work, we will make it happen, and then believe in the child.
Yes.
And every child of any kind has some strengths and some weaknesses.
Yes.
So don't look down, don't ignore, don't
hide. I wear Pranav's autism on my sleeve.
Right.
I literally do that.
Right.
I feel privileged that I'm his mother.
Right.
And I got this opportunity to do so much for him.
Yeah.
And that's how we need to think. And it will somewhere resonate with the child also.
Yeah.
The child also feels comfort.
The other big learning was that you had two children.
Yeah.
And one did not have this condition, the other had this condition, and how you brought up both. And both are today doing well and so connected to each other, and there is no. So I think it's beautiful what you've done. I'm sure you feel.
On a bad day, I do, think about how I could have done more for my daughter. And I actually think I could do more for my son. I'll be very honest with you. It's because challenges and goals keep reinventing.
Right.
In your mind. And I have so many goals for Pranav also, but it's no longer about me now. He's not a kid anymore. It's about what he wants and me supporting his dreams. Now it's about how I can be a scaffolding. But there also I feel I can be a better scaffolding. So it's a work in progress. That's another thing I want to say. It will never one day, that lived happily ever after. It's a work in progress. Lived happily ever after does not.
I would say the last 22 or 24 years, what you've done for me is admirable.
I'm sure
I would say
would do that.
Sure, I'm sure,
Yeah,
but
I would say that, yeah, if you look at the special fraternity, I mean, parents do rise to the occasion. They take time, some do it, instantly, some take their time, some take their denial route. So I guess every journey is to be
right,
celebrated and
right.
cherished.
Completely agree. But my point is slightly different. I'm saying it is not just for children or parents with children with special needs. I'm saying for all parents.
Oh, yes, yeah,
It is such a beautiful thing to say, let's believe in your children.
yes, that's it.
Let's, whether your child is neurodivergent or neurotypical, but the child will have some strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
Why don't we just believe in the child?
Yeah.
Why don't we allow them to, if they're not good in academics, then get into photography or cooking or all the graphic designing, whatever you're saying. And I think that's where a lot of times we believe in the society more
Yes.
and our children less, because the society says if your child is not going to IIT, then how will you have a career, or
Oh, yeah.
and all those kind of things. So in my mind, I think that's the biggest learning I've taken, and I hope a lot of parents take.
No, when Khanna wanted to be a model, I mean, people just looked at me that she's one foolishly optimistic parent.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
Pranav could not go and talk for
I mean,
himself.
not just modeling. I think everything that you have done is,
You have done.
or he has done.
Okay, let's say that, okay, I
He
suppose.
has done, but you've supported. His sister has supported. I'm sure his father has supported. I think.
Oh, yes.
And I
everybody.
think that's the other learning, that the family plays such a big role.
Yes, it does.
It takes the village to bring up a child, and if you don't have the village, you become the village. I love that statement.
So I always felt that, I didn't look for that village outside, and also along the way I also learned that everybody will not be on board with your crazy ideas. So and I learned not to explain my journey to everybody. I started with doing that. Oh, I'm doing this. You can't, if somebody is not understood the journey, let it be.
Right.
It's your journey. You're accountable. You're
Amazing.
answerable to your conscience, and it's not about what that person thinks about of my journey. I said, if you ask me about what's happening in the world, I wouldn't know.
Right.
I used to read 9 newspapers in the day. I just catch news on phone for 5 minutes, and that's it. And I really do not need to know what is happening in the neighborhood or in the extended family or here and there. I don't need to know. I know I have my hand on the pulse of what I need to do. I prioritize. So that's also there. You prioritize.
Amazing.
And be the village to raise your child and celebrate every little thing. Oh, he's a TEDx speaker too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he writes his own scripts.
Wow.
He won't let anybody do that. So I didn't work for all that. I worked for toilet training. I worked for settling his behavior. I worked for him being socially appropriate. Then everything falls into place.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for what you've done with Pranav and what Pranav has done in his journey.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you feel very proud, and a lot of parents can watch this and gain a lot of confidence and comfort from what your journey has been. It'll be wonderful to meet Pranav someday and
oh, yes, sure.
Hear his story from him. But thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.